The ruined colony was silent. Buildings stood broken like skeletons, their walls black from fire. The air was filled with the smell of smoke and dust. Among the ruins, a small alien girl hid inside the remains of a shelter. Her body was thin, her eyes wide with fear, her skin covered in dirt. She hugged her knees close, trying not to make a sound. Her people were gone, scattered or dead, and she was all alone. Then she heard it, the sound of heavy footsteps. They were steady, slow, and powerful. Something was moving closer through the ruins. The girl held her breath, praying it was not one of the enemy creatures that hunted the night. But soon, a tall shadow appeared at the broken doorway. It was not a beast. It was not one of her kind. It was a human soldier. He stepped into the dim light, his armor scratched, his helmet hanging at his side. His eyes glowed faintly under the setting sun, sharp and focused. The girl's heart froze. Her people had told her stories about humans. They were killers, monsters in flesh. They captured small aliens and devoured them. The old ones always warned the children, "If you see a human, run, for they will eat you to grow stronger." Now the nightmare stood in front of her. The human looked around slowly, scanning the ruins, then his gaze fell on the little girl. She gasped, pressing herself deeper into the corner. The soldier raised his hand slightly, showing he held no weapon aimed at her. His voice was calm, deep and strange. "It's okay, little one," he said. The girl shook her head violently, whispering, "Stay away. Don't eat me." Her voice was trembling, full of terror. The human paused, confusion crossing his face. Eat her? He had never heard such words from a child before. He crouched down, making himself smaller so he would not look so frightening. From his pack, he took out a small packet of food and a clear bottle of water. He set them carefully on the floor between them, and then backed away a little. The girl stared at the food, her stomach twisting with hunger. She had not eaten for days, but still she did not move. Was this a trick? Was he luring her closer so he could strike? The human did not push her. He only sat on a broken stone nearby, his eyes watching the horizon, not her. Minutes passed, the air heavy with silence. The girl finally crawled forward on shaky arms, her eyes fixed on him. She snatched the food quickly and retreated like a small animal. She ripped the packet open with her teeth and devoured it. The human smiled faintly, but he said nothing. He only offered her the water next, sliding it gently across the dusty floor. Again, she hesitated, then grabbed it and drank greedily. The liquid burned her dry throat, and for the first time in days, she felt a little alive. Still, the fear did not leave her heart. Her people's stories echoed in her mind. What if this kindness was only the first step before the monster revealed his true self? She kept watching him, every muscle tense, ready to run, but the human never moved closer, never raised his weapon. He simply sat there, like a quiet guardian beside the ruins. The girl could not understand it. Why was he helping her? Why was he not doing what the stories said? Night slowly began to fall, the sky turning dark purple. The human built a small fire, careful not to make too much smoke. The warmth spread through the broken shelter. The girl shivered, moving closer. Without realizing it, she wanted to believe him, but fear was still strong. At last, her small voice broke the silence. Are you here to eat me?" she asked. The human's eyes widened, shock and sadness flashing across his face. He shook his head slowly. "No, little one," he said softly. "I am here to protect you." The girl stared at him, her heart confused. Could it be true? Could a human be more than the monster her people described? She pulled the blanket of dust around her small body and looked at the fire. Her fear and hunger battled with a new, strange feeling. Hope. For the first time, she wondered if the old stories were wrong, but still in the back of her mind the question burned. What if tomorrow, when she woke, the human would finally show his true hunger? The night grew colder, the fire flickered low. The human stayed awake, watching the shadows outside. The girl closed her eyes, but her ears stayed open. Every sound made her body jump. Every creak made her think he was moving toward her. Yet the human never touched her, never harmed her. He simply stood guard as she drifted into a restless sleep. When the morning light returned, the girl opened her eyes to see the human still there, tired, wounded, but alive. He looked at her and gave a small nod. She did not smile. Not yet, but inside her heart, something small had changed. A seed of trust had been planted, though it was fragile like glass. Still, the old fear whispered inside. Her one question remained in her thoughts. Was this the man who would protect her, or the monster who would one day devour her? The morning sun pushed weak rays of light through the cracks in the ruined shelter. The little alien girl sat curled in the corner, her wide eyes fixed on the human soldier. He had not moved all night, sitting by the fading fire, his weapon across his knees. He looked tired, but his gaze stayed sharp. Always watching the shadows outside, her heart was still heavy with fear, the old stories still whispering in her head. Humans eat little aliens. They said humans are monsters, they said. But this human had given her food, had given her water, and had not harmed her through the long night. The confusion inside her was louder than her fear now. At last, she gathered the courage to speak again. Her voice was soft and trembling. "Are you really not going to eat me?" The human turned to look at her, his face calm but his eyes filled with something deep. He slowly shook his head. "No, little one," he said. "I will not hurt you. I will protect you." The words sounded gentle yet strange to her ears. Protect her? Why would a human protect her? Her people had always warned that humans only knew destruction. She pulled her knees tighter against her chest, still not trusting fully. "Why?" she asked, her eyes narrowing. "Why would you protect me?" The human was quiet for a long moment. He looked out at the ruined streets, his face heavy with thoughts. Finally he answered, "Because you are alive and no child should be left to die alone." The girl blinked, not knowing how to reply. No one had spoken to her like that since her family was gone. Still, her heart refused to believe completely. She watched every move he made with suspicion. When he reached into his pack again, her body flinched, thinking he would pull out a knife. But instead he only took out a piece of bread and placed it on the ground near her. He then leaned back, showing he had no trick, no trap. The girl's hunger won again, and she snatched the bread, tearing it into small bites. The human smiled faintly, though he tried to hide it. She was still afraid, but he could see the wall around her heart beginning to crack. Hours passed, the silence broken only by the distant echo of falling debris. The girl's small body grew heavy with exhaustion. Her eyelids dropped, but she forced herself awake. She did not want to fall asleep near a human, but soon her head leaned against the wall, her breath soft and uneven. The human kept his eyes on her. There was no cruelty in his stare, only quiet sorrow. He wondered what horrors she had seen, what pain had carved such deep fear into her heart. He wanted to tell her she was safe, but he knew words were not enough. Only actions would prove the truth. The day stretched on. The human left the shelter for a short time, returning with scavenged supplies, dried fruit, bandages, and a small blanket. The girl gasped when he came back, thinking he had left her to die. But he placed the blanket around her shoulders and said nothing. She gripped it tightly, her mind fighting between disbelief and comfort. That night, the sky burned red with the glow of distant fires. Strange roars echoed through the empty city. The girl woke suddenly, her heart racing. The human was on his feet, his weapon raised, his body tense. She froze in terror. Was this the moment he would finally show his true nature? He stepped closer, his shadow long and frightening in the firelight. The girl pressed her back to the wall, whispering, "Please don't." But then a sound shattered the air, a growl, deep and hungry. From behind the shelter came a beast, its body covered in dark scales, eyes glowing with rage. The human spun, firing his weapon in quick bursts. The beast leapt forward, claws slashing at the broken walls. The girl screamed, covering her ears, certain she would die, but the human stood in front of her like a shield, his body blocking the beast's path. The fight was brutal, dust and sparks filling the air. The beast roared in fury, but the human did not back away. He struck, he dodged, he fought with a strength that seemed endless. At last, with one final strike, the beast collapsed, its body crashing into the rubble. The human staggered, his chest heaving, blood dripping from a cut across his arm. The girl stared at him, her fear mixed with awe. He had risked his life, not to harm her but to protect her. For the first time she crawled forward without hesitation. Her small hand touched his arm gently. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice trembling. The human gave a tired smile. "You are safe," he said softly. But before the relief could settle, the girl's ears twitched. In the distance, she heard the sharp clatter of weapons, the heavy steps of more creatures approaching. Her heart froze once more. The danger was not over, it was only beginning. The night was thick with silence, but the silence was not safe. The little alien girl clutched the blanket around her shoulders, her wide eyes locked on the dark corners of the shelter. The human soldier sat near the broken doorway, his weapon in his hands, his body tense like a drawn bow. His earlier fight with the beast had left him wounded, but he stayed strong, refusing to rest. Then it happened. A soft sound, barely a whisper, drifted through the ruins. The girl's ears twitched, her body stiffened. It was not the sound of the wind, not the shifting of stone. It was the sound of movement, slow and careful. Something was coming. The human's sharp eyes narrowed, his weapon lifting slightly. The girl's heart pounded. She thought again of the stories. Humans were monsters, but what about the creatures that hunted in the shadows? What, if this time neither of them survived? The sound grew louder. Footsteps too heavy for small creatures, too quiet for machines. The girl crept closer to the human without realizing it. Her fear was stronger than her mistrust. She pressed against his side, trembling. The human lowered, his head slightly whispering, "Stay behind me." The words carried a weight she did not understand. Why did he keep protecting her? Why not leave her and save himself? Suddenly, the wall behind them cracked open with a crash. A shadow burst into the shelter. An alien beast, bigger than the last, its mouth filled with razor teeth, its glowing eyes locked on the girl. She screamed, but before she could move, the human lunged forward. The battle was brutal. The beast roared, its claws slashing across the floor, sparks flying from the broken stone. The human dodged, firing his weapon, each shot lighting up the room like lightning. The girl watched with terror as the two figures clashed again and again. The human's strength was great, but the beast was fast, faster than the one before. It moved with deadly purpose. Always trying to break past him, always aiming for her. The girl realized the truth. This human was not here to harm her. He was fighting, bleeding, risking his life only to keep her safe. The old stories in her mind began to crumble piece by piece. How could a monster act like this? The beast lunged once more, its claws tearing across the soldier's side. He stumbled, blood dripping onto the floor. The girl gasped, her small hands clenching the blanket tighter. She wanted to scream for him to run, to escape. But he stood tall, his weapon steady, his eyes filled with fire. With one final strike, the human drove his blade deep into the beast's chest. The creature howled, thrashing wildly, then fell silent, collapsing into the rubble. The human staggered, his breath heavy, his body weak. The girl rushed forward, her small hands grabbing his arm. "Don't fall," she cried, her voice breaking. "Please don't fall." He looked down at her, his lips pulling into a tired smile. "I told you," he whispered. "I will protect you." The girl's heart ached, her fear mixing with something new, something warmer. She no longer saw him as the monster of old tales. She saw him as her shield, her guardian. But before relief could take root, another sound filled the air. This time it was not the growl of beasts. It was the sharp, heavy march of boots, echoing through the ruins. The human stiffened, his eyes darkening. He knew that sound. Soldiers, armed and dangerous, were closing in. The girl's body froze. She grabbed his arm tighter, whispering, "Who are they?" His voice was grim. "Enemies." Her fear returned in a wave, stronger than before. If these new enemies were worse than the beasts, then neither of them would survive. The human quickly pulled her toward the back of the shelter, searching for an escape. The girl stumbled to keep up, her small feet scraping against the broken ground. They slipped into a narrow passage hidden behind collapsed stone. The air inside was damp and cold, filled with glowing moss that lit their way. The girl's heart pounded, each step echoing like thunder in her ears. Behind them, the sound of soldiers grew louder, closer. Their voices were sharp, cruel, speaking in a tongue the girl did not understand, but she understood the hunger in their tone. They were hunting, and she was the prey. The human stopped suddenly, placing a hand on the wall to steady himself. His wound was deep, blood soaking through his armor. The girl looked up at him with wide, desperate eyes. "You're hurt," she whispered. He shook his head, forcing a small smile. "It doesn't matter," he said. "We keep moving." But she knew it did matter. She saw the pain in his steps, the weakness in his body. Her chest tightened, a strange feeling filling her heart. For the first time, she wanted to protect him, just as he had protected her. As they moved deeper into the passage, the girl whispered softly, "Why do you fight for me?" The human's voice was low, heavy with truth, because no child should face the darkness alone. Her eyes filled with tears. The old stories of fear and hate no longer matched the man walking beside her. Maybe, just maybe, humans were not monsters. Maybe they were something else entirely. The sound of boots grew even louder. The girl knew the soldiers were only moments away. Her small hand reached for his, holding on tight. No matter what came next, she would not let go. The human tightened his grip, his eyes burning with determination. They had survived beasts. They had survived fear. Now together they would face the hidden enemy. The tunnel air was cold and damp, every drop of water echoing like a drum. The little alien girl held the human soldier's hand tightly, her small steps rushing to keep up. Behind them, the sound of heavy boots grew louder, soldiers moving fast through the ruins. Their voices carried through the stone, harsh and sharp like wolves hunting their prey. The human moved with determination. Though his side bled through his torn armor, each step was heavy, but he never slowed down. The girl looked up at him, fear burning in her wide eyes. "You are hurt," she whispered again, but his jaw tightened. "It doesn't matter," he said. "We must keep moving." The tunnel twisted and turned like a maze, the glowing moss casting eerie light across the walls. The girl's heart raced, every shadow feeling alive, every sound behind them sharper than before. Her legs were weak, her throat dry, but she forced herself forward. She knew if she stopped, they would both be caught. Suddenly, the passage opened into a wide chamber filled with broken pillars. The ground was cracked, pools of dark water reflecting faint light. The human stopped, scanning the area. The girl tugged his arm, whispering, "Which way?" He shook his head, his eyes searching. "We cannot stay here," he said. "They are close." The sound of footsteps thundered behind them. Shadows stretched along the walls, soldiers carrying weapons, their armor glinting in the dim light. The human grabbed the girl, pulling her toward a broken staircase leading upward. They ran, their breaths echoing through the chamber. The girl stumbled, nearly falling, but he lifted her with one arm, carrying her against his chest. Her heart pounded as she clung to him. She had feared this man, thought him a monster, but now she felt his strength, his courage, and something else. A warmth that her people never told her about, the warmth of protection. They burst out of the staircase into the ruins above, the night sky wide and endless. The city was silent, its towers broken, its streets scattered with rubble. The girl gasped for air, her lungs burning, but there was no time to rest. The soldiers were climbing after them. The human set her down, pointing forward. "Run," he said firmly. Her eyes widened. "But what about you?" He gave a small smile, though his face was pale with pain. "I will be right behind you." She hesitated, fear and doubt holding her still. The human crouched, looking into her eyes. "I promise to protect you," he said. "Trust me." The word, trust, echoed inside her heart. Slowly, she nodded and began to run across the cracked streets. Her small feet kicked up dust as she darted between fallen walls. The human followed, his weapon ready. Shots rang out, sharp blasts cutting through the night. Stones shattered, Sparks flew, but he never let the soldiers aim at her. Every time danger came near, he placed himself between her and the fire. They turned a corner and found themselves at a dead end. A collapsed tower blocked the path, its massive stones piled high. The girl's eyes filled with panic. "We are trapped," she cried. The human looked around quickly, his mind racing. He spotted a narrow gap between the fallen stones, just wide enough for her. "Go," he said, pointing. "Crawl through." Her hands shook. "What about you?" His voice was firm. "I will hold them back." Tears filled her eyes. She shook her head. "No, I won't leave you." The human crouched low, placing his hand gently on her shoulder. "You must," he said softly. "You are the reason I fight." Words cut into her heart like fire. She wanted to argue, but the sound of soldiers was too close. With trembling hands, she crawled into the narrow gap, her body squeezing through the stones. She looked back, seeing the human standing tall with his weapon, ready to face the storm. The soldiers appeared, their voices shouting, their weapons raised. The girl covered her ears, her tears falling. The night exploded with fire and sound, blasts lighting up the ruins. She pressed herself deeper into the stones, praying he would survive. At last, silence fell. Her body shook as she crawled out the other side, her eyes searching wildly. She saw him, bruised, bleeding, but alive, standing among the fallen soldiers. Her heart leapt with relief. She rushed to him, throwing her small arms around his waist. "You came back," she whispered, her voice breaking. The human looked down, surprised, then placed his hand gently on her head. "I promised," he said. For the first time, the girl believed him completely. Her fear was not gone, but her trust had taken root. Stronger than before, they stood together in the ruins, the night sky above them wide and dark. The danger was not over, but she no longer felt alone. The human looked at the horizon, his eyes filled with fire. "We must keep moving," he said. "There are more coming." The girl nodded, gripping his hand tightly. She no longer ran only because of fear. She ran because she wanted to stay with him. Together, they disappeared into the ruins, the sound of soldiers echoing once more behind them. But now, for the first time, the girl felt something she had almost forgotten. Hope. The ruins stretched wide and broken under the pale light of dawn. The human soldier and the little alien girl moved carefully through the shattered streets. Dust clung to their skin, and every sound of falling stone made them tense. They had survived the beasts. They had escaped the soldiers. But danger was never far. The girl walked close to the human now, her small hand gripping his tightly. Her fear had not vanished, but trust had begun to grow. Fragile, yet strong. Every step reminded her of what he had done. He had fought for her, bled for her, protected her. No monster from her people's stories would do such things. But the world was not finished testing them. As they turned a corner, voices rose from the shadows. The girl froze, her heart leaping into her throat. From the broken arch of an old building, figures stepped out. Alien soldiers, her own people. Their armor was cracked, their weapons sharp, their eyes hard. They stared at her, then at the human, and raised their weapons. "Stay behind me," the human whispered, lowering his weapon. But keeping his body in front of hers, the alien soldiers shouted in their tongue, words filled with anger and hate. The girl understood them, her ears twitching at every cruel syllable. Traitor, they called her, captured by the monster. Step away from him or die with him. Her body trembled, her chest tight. These were her people, the same kind who told her the stories of human cruelty. They were supposed to be safe, familiar, her only family left. But when she looked at their faces, she saw only rage. When she looked at the human, she saw a shield, a light. In the darkness, the soldiers shouted again, "Move away from the beast, child." The human's voice was low, calm. "Don't listen," he whispered. "Do what you believe." The girl's mind spun like a storm. She remembered the fear in her heart when she first saw him. She remembered the food he gave, the water, warmth of fire. She remembered his wounds, his words, "I will protect you." Her small body stepped out from behind him. The human tried to stop her, but she shook her head. She walked forward, her knees shaking, her voice soft but strong. "He is not a monster," she said, her words trembling. "He saved me again and again." The alien soldiers hesitated, surprise flashing across their faces. One of them snarled, "He lies to you, little one. He uses you. When he is finished, he will eat you." The girl shook her head fiercely, tears shining in her eyes. "No," she shouted, "you are wrong. He fought the beasts. He fought the hunters. He never hurt me." Her small arms spread wide, standing between the human and her people. "If you want to kill him, you must go through me first." The silence was heavy. The human's chest tightened as he watched her trembling figure. She was terrified, but her courage was greater than her fear. The alien soldiers looked at one another, their weapons shaking slightly. They had never seen a child defend a human before. One soldier stepped forward, his voice harsh. "You are blinded," he said. "He has poisoned your mind. Step aside." The girl stood firm, her arms still spread, her body shaking but unbroken. "I will not move," she said, her voice steady despite the fear in her heart. The human looked down at her, his chest heavy with pride and sorrow. This small child, once so afraid of him, now stood as his shield. It was a bond stronger than any lie, stronger than any story, but the moment broke with the sound of a weapon charging. One alien soldier raised his gun, his face hard with fury. His finger tightened on the trigger, aiming not at the human but at the girl herself. The human's heart froze. He moved instantly, throwing himself between her and the weapon. "Stop," the girl cried, her scream echoing through the ruins, but the soldier did not stop. The weapon's light grew brighter, the shot ready to fire. Time slowed for her, her small eyes filled with tears. Her voice broke into the air. "Please," she begged, "don't hurt him." The other soldiers hesitated, their hands lowering slightly. Even they were shaken by her courage, but the one with the weapon refused, his voice sharp. "No mercy for traitors," he shouted. The human's arms wrapped around the girl, pulling her close. His body shielded hers completely. The weapon fired, the sound tearing through the air like thunder. The girl's scream was lost in the blast. Her heart shattered as she felt the human's body jolt. She looked up at him in horror. Blood spread across his armor, his face pale, but his eyes still locked on hers. "I told you," he whispered weakly. "I will protect you." Her small hands gripped his arm, tears falling. The alien soldiers stood frozen, shock and doubt on their faces. No human monster would sacrifice himself like this. No story could explain such a choice. The girl's heart filled with fire, her fear replaced with fury. She turned to her people, her voice breaking but strong. "You see," she cried, "he is no monster. He is more than you ever told me." The soldiers lowered their weapons slowly, uncertainty in their eyes, but the one who fired raised his weapon again, his rage unbroken. He stepped forward, aiming at the human. Once more, the girl's scream echoed through the ruins as the air grew tense. The next moment would decide everything. The ruins stood silent, yet the silence was filled with danger. The little alien girl clung to the human soldier's arm, her tears wetting his armor. Blood spread across his side where the blast had struck, his breathing shallow but steady. Still he stood tall, shielding her from the alien soldier who aimed his weapon again. The soldier's eyes were hard, full of hate. "No mercy," he spat. "No human deserves to live." The girl's small body shook, but she spread her arms wide once more. Her voice cracked as she shouted, "He saved me. He bled for me. He is not what you say." The alien soldiers behind him hesitated, their weapons lowering slowly. Doubt crept into their faces, their eyes flickering between the wounded human and the crying child. The girl's courage struck them deeper than any weapon could. Never before had they seen one of their kind defend a human so fiercely. The soldier with the gun growled, stepping closer. "Do not be fooled," he barked. "This is their trick. They pretend kindness until they strike, just like the old tales." But even as he spoke, the human swayed on his feet, barely able to stand. His lips pressed into a grim line, his eyes locked on the girl. There was no cruelty in his face, only pain and determination. Finally he spoke, his voice low but firm. "If I were the monster you believe," he said, "she would already be gone." The soldiers froze, the weight of his words striking harder than a weapon. The girl pressed herself closer to him, whispering, "Don't leave me." His hand rested gently on her head, blood staining his glove. "I won't," he whispered back. One of the alien soldiers lowered his weapon fully, his eyes wide with disbelief. No human would shield a child with his life, he murmured. Another added softly, "Perhaps the stories were lies." The armed soldier turned on them, fury burning in his voice. "Lies? Have you forgotten the war? Have you forgotten what they did to us?" But his words rang weaker now, his rage clashing against the sight in front of him. The girl's voice rose, trembling but strong. "Maybe the war was built on lies," she cried. "Maybe they wanted us to fear, to hate, so we never questioned." Her eyes burned with tears, her small hands gripping the human's arm tightly. "I saw the truth with my own eyes. He saved me when no one else would. He fought for me. He chose me over his own safety." The group of soldiers shifted uneasily. Some lowered their weapons. Others exchanged uncertain looks. The human's chest heaved as he struggled to stay on his feet, his vision blurring. Still, he stood tall, his body shielding her completely. His silence spoke louder than words. The armed soldier hissed in anger, raising his weapon once more. But before he could fire, one of his own companions grabbed his arm, pushing it down. "Enough," the companion said firmly. "Open your eyes, brother. This is not the way." The armed soldier snarled, trying to pull free. "He has poisoned you too," he shouted. "You are blind." The tension snapped like a rope stretched too tight. The soldiers argued among themselves, voices rising in anger and fear. Some defended the human. Others clung to the old stories. The girl's small voice cut through the chaos. "Look at him," she cried. "He is bleeding. He is dying. Yet he protects me still." Her voice echoed through the ruins, silencing them. The armed soldier stared at the human, his rage faltering for a moment. What kind of monster chose to bleed for a child not his own? His grip on the weapon trembled, his eyes clouded with doubt. But before the moment could break fully, a new sound rolled across the ruins, a deep rumble, steady and heavy. The ground shook beneath their feet, dust falling from the broken walls. The girl clung tighter to the human, her ears twitching. The soldiers looked around in alarm, weapons raised once more. From the horizon came the sound of marching, the sound of many boots, many weapons, many voices. The human's face hardened, his eyes narrowing. "They're coming," he whispered. The girl looked up at him, her heart sinking. "Who?" she asked, though her trembling voice already knew the answer. He met her eyes, his face pale but steady. "My people," he said. The soldiers gasped, their weapons snapping up again. "Humans," one whispered in fear. "A whole squad." The alien girl's chest tightened, her mind spinning. She had only just begun to trust this one human. But what of the others? Would they be like him, or like the monsters of the stories? The human tightened his grip on his weapon, his free arm still shielding the girl. His voice was steady despite the blood on his lips. "No matter what happens," he told her, "I will keep you safe." Her eyes filled with tears once more. But this time they were not only of fear, they were of something new, something fragile but powerful. Hope. The ground shook harder, the sound of human forces drawing nearer. The alien soldiers glanced at one another, caught between fear and doubt. The girl's small voice whispered the truth she now believed. "He is not the monster," she said. "The monster is the lie." But as the dust rose and the marching drew close, one question burned in her heart. Would the other humans see her as a child to protect, or a creature to destroy? The ground shook harder with every second. Dust rose from the broken streets, filling the air like smoke. The little alien girl clung to the wounded human soldier, her small hands gripping his torn armor. Her heart raced as the sound of marching grew louder, the sound of human soldiers drawing near. The alien soldiers around them raised their weapons, fear clear in their eyes. "More humans," one whispered, his voice trembling. An entire squad. The girl's chest tightened, her breath shallow. She had only just begun to trust this human beside her. But what if the others were not like him? What if they were like the monsters her people warned about? The wounded soldier crouched low, his weapon ready, his eyes scanning the horizon. His voice was low, steady despite his pain. "Stay close to me," he said to the girl. "No matter what happens, don't let go." She nodded quickly, her tears glistening, her heart pounding louder than the footsteps. Then they appeared, out of the dust. Human soldiers marched into view, their armor dark, their weapons shining in the weak dawn light. Their steps were heavy, their faces cold, their voices sharp. The girl's body shook as she pressed closer to her guardian. Would they protect her like he did, or would they destroy her? The alien soldiers stiffened, their weapons raised. The tension in the air was so sharp it could cut stone. The girl's small voice broke the silence. "Please," she whispered, though no one heard. "Please don't hurt him." The human squad stopped at the edge of the ruins. Their leader stepped forward, a tall figure with a scar across his cheek. His eyes narrowed as he spotted the wounded soldier and the child clinging to him. "What is this?" the leader demanded, his voice hard. "Why are you protecting that creature?" The girl's heart dropped, her worst fear spilling into the open air. Creature. That was what they saw her as. The wounded soldier tightened his hold on her, his voice strong despite his weakness. "She is not a creature," he said. "She is a child," the squad murmured in shock, their eyes shifting between the child and their comrade. The leader's frown deepened. "You've gone soft," he snapped. "Humans do not save them. We finish them." The girl's breath caught, tears filling her eyes. This was the moment, she thought. This was where the stories came true. But the wounded soldier did not step aside. He raised his weapon, not at the girl, but at his own squad. "If you want her," he said, his voice sharp as steel, "you'll go through me first." The silence was heavy, the air thick with disbelief. The girl stared up at him, her heart trembling. Even as blood ran down his side, even as his strength faded, he still chose her. Her tears fell faster, but they were not only of fear, they were of something new, something powerful. The alien soldiers behind her lowered their weapons slowly. Their faces were torn between hate and wonder. One whispered softly, "No monster would do this." Another nodded. Perhaps the war was built on lies. The human squad hesitated, unsure. Their leader barked again, "Stand down, soldier, or you'll be treated as a traitor." But the wounded man stood firm, his arm still wrapped around the girl. "Then call me traitor," he said, his voice strong, "because I will not let you harm her." The leader's jaw clenched, rage flashing in his eyes, but the other soldiers shifted uneasily, their doubt spreading. They had fought beside this man, they had trusted him with their lives. Now they saw him protecting a child, not with words, but with his blood. Could they really believe the old stories still? The girl's small voice rose, trembling but clear. "Please," she said, "stop fighting." She stepped forward, her hands gripping the soldier's arm as if to pull him back from the edge. Her wide eyes looked at both sides, alien and human. "Why must I be the enemy?" she cried. "Why can't I just be me?" The ruins fell into silence, her voice echoing like a bell. Her words pierced deeper than weapons, cutting through fear and hate. The human soldier looked down at her, pride and sorrow in his eyes. "You are more than they see," he whispered. "You are the truth." The leader of the squad hesitated, his eyes narrowing. For the first time he saw not a creature, but a child clinging to one of his own. Doubt cracked through his hard face, and in that crack, something new flickered. Uncertainty, the idea. Girl pressed herself closer to the soldier. She no longer shook with fear. Instead she stood taller, her voice steady. "This human is my protector," she said. "He is not my monster." The soldiers on both sides lowered their weapons slowly. The air shifted, the heavy storm of violence breaking just a little. The girl held his hand tightly, refusing to let go. For the first time since the war began, two enemies stood still, not because of force, but because of a child's courage. The wounded soldier leaned close, whispering in her ear, "You are safe now." he said softly. The girl closed her eyes, her tears falling. For the first time in her life, she believed those words. The dawn light spread across the ruins, golden and soft. The war was not over. Hate was not gone. But in that moment, something changed. A seed of hope was planted, not in the ground, but in hearts. The galaxy would one day remember this moment, and not as a story of fear, but as the beginning of a bond,